Welcome back to Worlds Without Warning. I'm Jon Negroni, and this is where original fiction comes alive through the voices of their creators. Each week, we bring you stories from Etc. Literary Magazine that surprise, challenge, and hopefully transport you to places you never expected to find magic. Today's story is called Magical Pork, and it's a piece of magical realism that's very close to my heart. I wrote this earlier this year, and it's about food, community, and the kind of miracles that happen when we nourish each other with something that looks and tastes like love. This is the story of Ruben, who runs a Puerto Rican food truck in Oakland, and what happens when his pernil, slow-roasted pork shoulder marinated in garlic, oregano, and tradition, becomes something more than just a meal. It's about the magic that happens when a neighborhood gathers around good food, and how sometimes feeding people is the most revolutionary act you can perform. Without giving too much away, I'm just gonna say this. If you've ever wondered what a miracle smells like, well, it's roasted garlic and crispy pork skin. And if you've ever been hungry for more than just food, if you've been hungry for connection, home, hope, whatever it might be, this could be a great story for you. After I read Magical Pork, I'm gonna share some insights about where the story came from, including my own relationship with Puerto Rican food, growing up between cultures, and why I think the best stories tend to happen around shared meals. As always, you can find the written version with original artwork over at cetera.substack.com. All right, here is Magical Pork. Magical Pork. How a food truck and a roasted pig brought the whole neighborhood together. Written by Jon Negroni, edited by Natalia Emmons, and narrated by Jon Negroni. Quick question. You ever wonder what it feels like to see a miracle happen in real time? I'm not talking about a weeping statue or a winning lottery ticket. I mean a proper, life-altering, tear down the walls of your reality kind of miracle. The kind that smells like roasted garlic and tastes like crispy pork skin. No? That's all right. Let me tell you a story then. Careful though, it might make you hungry. The name's Ruben, and I run Puerto Bites, the finest Puerto Rican food truck this side of the Bay Area. And by finest, I mean it's mine. And I love it more than I love breathing, maybe even eating. Not to be dramatic, but running a food truck is like falling in love with someone who constantly forgets your birthday. It's joy and frustration all wrapped up in aluminum foil and handed out the window for $12 a pop. Except lately, it's been more frustration than joy. See, the thing about the food truck business is that more often than not, you're maybe one bad weekend from going out of business, kaput. Puerto Bites would take its last breath on the wrong kind of day. At one point, the bank gave me a not-so-complicated ultimatum. Come up with the payments or the truck would be theirs. The worst part? They didn't even want the truck. They were just going to sell it for scraps. And don't even get me started on food truck theft. My buddy Martin, the guy with the nachos truck in San Jose, he had his truck stolen last week. San Jose is over an hour drive from here in Oakland, but that's close enough to keep me up at night. This thing's my baby. I even sleep in the truck sometimes just to make sure it's safe. Losing it isn't an option. Anyway, this story really begins on a Thursday, which is prime prep day for the Friday lunch rush, the most important 2 hours of the week, at least for us. Thursdays are when my tiny kitchen, no bigger than the inside of a walk-in closet, turns into a battlefield. It's me, my cousin Gabby, who's got the best knife skills in the business, and Hector, our grill guy who swears he once flipped burgers for Bad Bunny. Sure, pendejo. But this Thursday was not ordinary. Nah, this was pernil day. Now, if you don't know pernil, no problem. Let me enlighten you. It's slow-roasted pork shoulder marinated in a blend of garlic, oregano, vinegar, and love. The oregano and vinegar are optional in my opinion, but taking out the garlic and love, that's an offense punishable by, having to eat that particular pernil. The crispy golden skin, that's called cuerito, and it's what angels snack on. I swear, if you look close enough, you can see your future in that glistening fat. It's tradition, celebration, and cholesterol all in one. We started early, And by early, I mean pretty late at night. Ruben, Gabi said, grumbling. I'm pretty sure this is a human rights violation, huh? You want crispy pork skin, but what about my skin? I need sleep if we're working through lunch and dinner tomorrow. Quit whining and peel the garlic, I shot back, tossing her a massive bundle of cloves. Pernil takes time, so that's what we're giving it. Ya tú sabes. Now, marinating pernil is an art. First, you make the adobo, a blend of garlic, salt, black pepper, oregano, and olive oil. It's not just seasoning, it's a declaration. And you gotta make that thing salty like the sea. I smashed the garlic cloves with a mortar and pestle, the sharp, pungent aroma filling the air and then some. I could already taste the finished product in my head. When the garlic was a paste, I mixed in the rest, watching it swirl together into a rich, earthy blend. This wasn't just cooking, this was communion. Next up, I made slits in the pork with my knife, careful and precise, each cut ready to hold a packet of that garlicky magic. The fat cap on this particular shoulder was thin, but pristine, the kind that promised golden, crackling perfection. When I pressed the adobo in the meat, it felt different. The texture, the way it absorbed the marinade, it was like the pernil was talking to me, soaking it all in like a sponge and thanking me for it. Now, I'd done pernil 100 times, but something about this one, again, it was different. I felt it when I was massaging the adobo into the meat and wrapping the fat back over the top. Side note, you gotta get personal with your pernil, you know? There's no room for shyness in Boricua cooking or eating. You put food in front of me, I'm gonna eat it, no question. Anyway, the garlic didn't run out like I thought it would halfway. Each clove seemed to multiply in my hands, plump and fragrant. And when I scored the fat cap, the knife moved like it had a mind of its own, carving perfect diamonds into the skin. My old geometry teacher would flip their lid if they saw this. You're getting weirdly intense about that pig, Ruben, Gabi said, side-eyeing me as she chopped cilantro for the tostones batter. Maybe it's because this pig's gonna save us, I replied, without a hint of sarcasm. Hector was in the corner prepping a batch of alcapurrias. It better. I told my girl I'd have her car fixed next month. If this weekend's a bust, we're all screwed. We prepped late into the night, the air in the truck thick with the smell of garlic, spices, and sizzling oil. I basted the pernil every hour, the juices pooling at the bottom of the pan like liquid gold, and every time I turned it around in the oven, hot damn, I swear it glowed. Not like a weird radioactive glow, more like it had been kissed by the sun itself. The skin was crackling perfection, the meat tender and juicy. I could have cried, but Hector would have roasted me worse than the pork. Friday morning, I parked the truck on our usual corner for final prep, and my heart stopped. When I checked the oven, I swore I'd messed something up. The temperature gauge was way higher than it should have been, but for some impossible reason, the pernil wasn't burnt. Not even close. Instead, the skin was crisping up perfectly, little pockets of golden fat bubbling at the edges. I wiped my forehead, confused but not about to complain. I just had to focus on getting ready for the lunch rush, except it wasn't just a rush, it was a stampede. Word had gotten out about the pernil, apparently. Maybe it was the Instagram post I'd put up with the slow-mo video of me carving the cuerito, or maybe the smell had drifted on the wind like a siren song, all the way down to Jack London Square. Either way, people showed up in droves. Only problem? We for sure didn't have enough for everybody. By noon, the line stretched down the block. I was slicing pernil as fast as my wrists would let me, piling it onto plates of arroz con gandules and garnishing with a dollop of pink pickled onions. Gabi was on the fryer cranking out tostones, while Hector kept the coquito flowing. We'd bottled the coconut rum magic the night before, and it was selling like agua fria on a hot day. Ruben, you gonna feed me or what? Mrs. Romero, one of our regulars, called out as she adjusted her massive sun hat. She had her grandkids with her, two hyperactive twins chasing each other in circles. You know I got you, Carmen, I called back, grinning as I handed over a plate piled high in steaming perfection. She took one bite and closed her eyes like she'd just seen heaven. Dios mío, this is better than my own cooking. That's the goal, I teased, getting back to the tray. The line wasn't getting any shorter. In fact, it was getting bigger. A guy in a suit stepped up next, looking entirely out of place. I heard about this place on TikTok, he said, glancing nervously at his phone. Is it really as good as the hype? Only one way to find out. I handed him a plate, watching as he took a bite. His eyes widened. Holy, this is amazing. He was already posting it to his Instagram before I could respond. Gabby leaned over and whispered, we're gonna run out, aren't we? Here's the thing, though. No matter how much pernil I served, the tray never emptied. I'd look down expecting to see nothing but scraps, and there it was. Still full, still steaming, still perfect. At first, I thought I was losing it. Gabby, I hissed, pulling her aside. Have you been sneaking more pernil into the tray? She gave me a look like I just insulted her abuela. ¿Estás loco? I've been stuck at the fryer all day. I checked with Hector, but he just laughed. What, you think I got a secret stash of pork shoulders in my back pocket? Don't question it, cuz. Just go with it. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, we'd fed half the neighborhood. And still the pernil didn't run out. It didn't even look like it had been touched. The cuerito was just as crispy as when I pulled it out of the oven, too. The meat was somehow juicier, the flavor more intense, like every person I served gave it more and more life. And people weren't just eating, they were connecting with each other. Strangers were swapping stories over plates, their laughter spilling out into the street. Kids who didn't even speak the same language were sharing bites of arroz con gandules like it was candy. I swear one dude talked about turning his into a taco. Ruben, mijo. Mrs. Santiago waved at me from the middle of the line. She was one of my day ones, back when I could barely afford fresh ingredients. You better save me some of that pernil, or I'm sending my nietos to raid your truck. I laughed, slicing another chunk of pork. Mrs. Santiago, I got you covered. You think I'd let you walk away hungry? Y tú sabes. When she got to the front, she took one look at the steaming plate and let out a low whistle. Smells like my abuela's kitchen in Ponce. She pointed at me with her fork. You better not tell me you stole her recipe. Swear I didn't, I said, grinning. But if it's that good, maybe I should. Post-dinner was normally our downtime, but at 8 p.m. the truck was still chaos. Orders flew in so fast, I stopped trying to memorize faces and just focused on plates. My knife moved on instinct, slicing tender pieces of pernil that fell apart before the blade even hit the cutting board. Hector was yelling out drink orders, Gabby's fryer was hissing and spitting oil like it was possessed, and the crowd was loud. Someone was playing music from their phone, and every few seconds I caught snippets of laughter and conversation from people who didn't seem to care about the wait. The line was wrapping around the block, and I didn't even have time to feel overwhelmed. All I knew was slice, plate, repeat. Then, as if drawn by some invisible force, maybe the god of the bay itself or something, a bunch of other food trucks began to show up. A taco truck with salsas so vibrant they looked painted. A Korean barbecue stand that smelled like heaven on a skewer. A cart selling Ethiopian injera with lentils so spiced they made your tongue dance. What? I had a minute to go check it out. Each truck added to the symphony, their owners pulled in by the same magnetic energy that had kept my pernil going all day. By midnight, the street was alive with music, laughter, and the clatter of forks and bottles. A full-on food truck festival, and it just came out of nowhere. A few old guys I recognized from the local coffee shop showed up with some string lights, and a group of teens helped them set it all up. I even saw that one dude with the suit come back and help them find a way to power the whole thing. And funny enough, somebody else showed up with a speaker playing salsa music loud enough to make your ribs vibrate. Kids were running around with plates of food too big for their hands, and a couple was dancing on the sidewalk like nobody was watching. Smoke from the grills mixed with the scent of spices, and the whole block just felt alive, like it was breathing in time with the beat of the music. Trucks from every corner of the world had joined in, their signs bright and colorful, offering everything from spicy birria to buttery naan. It was not just a meal, it was a party. A reminder that food has the power to heal, to unite, to bring joy in the face of struggle. My heart swelled just looking over the crowd. A revolution of good times. Once things finally started to slow down, I spotted two older women sitting at one of the folding tables someone had set up. They were swapping bites off each other's plates, laughing like old friends. When I stopped by to check on them, one pointed at the other with the fork and said, "Turns out, we grew up in the same barrio in Puerto Rico. Can you believe that?" The other woman nodded, still chewing her arroz con gandules. "I haven't tasted food like this since I left home. It's like, I don't even know, like it was meant to happen." All I could do was laugh. "Maybe a sign to go visit the island again, eh?" She nodded, mouth full. As for the pernil, it stayed full until the very last plate was served. When the crowd finally thinned and I closed up the truck, I found the roasting tray empty save for a single piece of cuerito. I popped it into my mouth, savoring the crunch. It was quiet now, the kind of quiet that feels full instead of empty. My body ached, my arms were so sore, but I could not stop smiling. The pernil saved more than just my truck that day. I fed the block, but it's not like I didn't get anything back for it. And I'll admit, I didn't question how the pernil really lasted that long. Some things, you just have to take on faith. Only way to make it through, you know? So yeah, I've seen a miracle. It smelled like garlic, tasted like home, and changed a whole neighborhood. Because after that Friday, the trucks started coming back like they never left. That was Magical Pork. Thank you so much for listening to this story. And for the first time, I'm going to share an author's note I wrote specifically for the first time since this story was published back in February of 2025. So yeah, this story, it came out of a real craving I had. Not for food, for once, though pernil obviously was completely on my mind. No, this came from a hunger I had for something much harder to define. This kind of feeling of being seen and fed and lifted by a moment that shouldn't be possible. But guess what? It is. I wanted to focus on a miracle, but one that's not divine in the religious sense, of course, but something communal. And I wanted to root it in this mix of sweat and seasoning and shared joy and other secret ingredients. I wrote the story back in January of 2025, originally for an anthology, which didn't work out, but I was able to publish it on Cetera instead. And the original intention was to write about hope in a time of what felt like near collapse. It still feels like it, to be honest. I wanted it to be about somebody doing their best with what they have. In this case, that's garlic, a truck, a cousin with knife skills, named after my real cousin, Gabriela, by the way, and getting more than they bargained for. Not from luck or magic exactly, but from the way community rises when you nourish it with something that looks and smells like magic. Sometimes that looks like a neighborhood gathering around a food truck. Sometimes it's one perfect bite, reminding you where you come from. For me, I grew up in the States. My parents and most of my siblings were born on the island, though, and we would visit Puerto Rico every summer, I think, pretty much, while we were growing up. And for months at a time. That's the benefit of having a mom who's a teacher. I would eat some dang good Caribbean food while I was there, but I didn't fully appreciate it until the day I moved to California, where that kind of cuisine, it's sparse at best. Eventually, though, some good friends of mine let me know that there's a food truck in Oakland called Boricua Kitchen. And my goodness, it was like being in my mom's kitchen again. So, I wanted to write the story dedicated to those fine folks and also my mom, because she's the one who taught me how to make pernil, with the hope, by the way, that it might also, maybe, almost be somewhat close to as good as my abuela Juanita's. I would never dare say it is. And to that end, Ruben, by the way, who's named after my cousin and uncle, is the kind of character I honestly love the most. He's this kind of stubborn, overwhelmed, occasionally ridiculous, but overall deeply loyal guy. He doesn't call himself a miracle worker. He doesn't have an ego. But miracle worker is what he becomes. And I think we need more stories like his all the time. Not because they make us forget the hard stuff, but because they show us how to survive the hard stuff And it can be with simple, innocuous things like flavor and love and music, even somebody's phone blasting music at midnight. But of course, on top of all that, some good old-fashioned good food. So if this story made you hungry, awesome. If it made you feel something deeper than that, even better. You can find Magical Pork over at cetera.substack.com, where you can also subscribe for free to get new stories every single Thursday. Everything we publish is edited by Natalia Emmons, who always helps these stories become their best selves. This Thursday, we're going to drop a new story that I think will hopefully surprise you in ways that are extremely magical. But thank you so much for listening to Worlds Without Warning. Until next time, remember that sometimes the most powerful magic happens in the most ordinary places, around folding tables, over shared plates, and when strangers become neighbors over some good food. Y tú sabes.